All right, I think we got our notification there that we are live and official. So I will call, I will call this meeting to order at 6:12 p.m. of the South Bend Empowerment Zone. I am looking over to the side here because my agenda is on my other screen, so I can actually see that. And so we will start off our meeting here. What I'd like to do is from our executive session, we would like to have a motion to move our agenda item to discuss and consider the Empowerment Zone Chief Evaluation to the beginning of the agenda.
I move.
Thank you, Ashley. Can I get a second?
Second.
Excellent, Aaron. Thank you. First and second. So I know for clarification, just so that we can make sure that we've got quorum of all of our board members present for the vote here. So all in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
Hearing none. We will move that to the front. So the first item on our agenda is to discuss and consider the Empowerment Zone Chief Evaluation. And so during our closed executive session, the board talked about and reviewed our previous year and has had a couple executive sessions to talk about our support of Dr. Cheryl Camacho and her work in the zone. It's been a challenging year leading through COVID, through all of the changes in education, everything that's been happening in our schools, and we've been happy with the result and very pleased with the work that's been happening in the zone. And we know that there are challenges ahead and there are things that we need to work through. But the board has looked at providing the full 10% salary bonus as put in the contract. And I will entertain a motion to approve Dr. Cheryl Camacho's bonus for the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll make the motion to approve our budget for the
Thank you, Karima.
School year.
I get a second.
Second.
Second from Jasmine. Thank you. Any discussion or additional comments? Hearing none, then we will move into a vote to approve the bonus for this year. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
And then any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. So that motion passes. Congratulations, Cheryl, and we look forward to this upcoming school year. Okay, and so next, then we will get back to our regularly scheduled agenda here, our informational updates. And so first up on the list is our 2020-2021 Empowerment Zone results and impact.
Thank you, Sam. So I'm going to share my screen to get us started, but it has been quite the year, and I'm excited to share the results from this year with the public and with the board. All right, so as I share out results from this year, I'll be sharing results in the buckets of academics, school culture, family partnership, and then enrollment. The first three buckets are part of our continuous improvement framework. And then of course, enrollment is just foundational to school and Empowerment Zone health. I found this quote and wanted to share it because I think it captures this year beautifully, which is that the best views come after the hardest climbs. This year was a tough climb for a lot of us in the Empowerment Zone, for our students, for our families, for our staff. It was a tough year with COVID-19 and just really trying to start to build some of the systems that are going to support us as we continue this work. And so before I dive into some of the nitty-gritty, I just wanted to show some of the things that are intangible, some of the things that don't really show up in our results. which are all of the amazing staff that we have, the celebrations that we had for our students and families, the different events that we had, and things that we did to support our staff as we navigated this really, really tough mountain. And so, you know, I will circle back to this at the end, but our staff really made it happen this year, along with our community partners, and we are so incredibly grateful for all the work they did. So again, I'm going to present what is on the screen in front of you is our continuous improvement framework, which is broken up into academics and instruction, school culture, family partnership, and then we've added a new bucket, innovation, organizational health, and sustainability. So when you look at each of those buckets, you can see the things that we are driving towards in the empowerment zone. And an important thing to note is for the first three buckets, these frameworks and these indicators were sort of developed with a lot of community input. Last year, we built out this continuous improvement framework from the voices of over 800 stakeholders. And, you know, I think that that is really exciting that we are really sort of directing and driving our work in alignment with what the community and what our students and families and staff said was important. So I'm going to start first talking about academics and instruction and where we have sort of what our journey has looked like this year. And I want to start with this quote because we know that teachers are the heartbeat of us being able to provide a solid instruction to our students, so a solid educational experience. And so this quote, you know, where the science of teaching describes how teaching should go, art suggests the unique way teaching unfolds as the teacher pursues these and other practices. In this way, every successful teacher is an artist. Love is at the root of everything, all learning, all parenting, all relationships, love or the lack of it. And that's a quote from Bob Marzano, who is a pretty well-known education researcher. So the way that I'm going to share out the data today is we have a benchmark assessment called iReady. It assesses our kids 3 times a year on these benchmark assessments in reading and in math. It is very highly correlated to the iLearn assessment. And what this enables us to do is to move forward, really sort of knowing what is the impact of our instructional program. And as we notice trends in between benchmarks, we can then sort of devise strategy to continue to focus on improving. The other thing that I want to name before I share out some of this data is, again, this was an incredibly challenging year. So, you know, we started the year virtually, and then we had to go back to it for a little bit, you know, over the holidays. And we were all operating in this environment of ambiguity and concern and worry. Some of us lost family members, right? Some of us got really sick ourselves. And so I just want to name that, you know, these results are particularly important to me because of all of the things we had to navigate in order to make them come true. So as I go through, we've gone through and color coded. Any dark green represents a 5 percentage point or more improvement between benchmark assessments. The light green indicates 1 to 4% improvement in between benchmark assessments. Yellow indicates no movement in between benchmarks, and red indicates negative movement between benchmarks. So for this first goal that I'm going to share out, the goal was to reduce the number and percentage of children in tier 3, which means 2 or more grade levels behind in reading and math, comparing the same children who took the iReady benchmark assessment in the fall, winter, and the spring. And so you can see here, as we look at, you know, performance in math across our empowerment zone schools, there is a lot of really great movement here to be very proud of, particularly as we look at, you know, the decreases that existed here. And so in math, with Quillard, you know, decreasing the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels by 14%. And I also want to call out Harrison, who decreased the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels below by 13%. But you can see on that overall, across the empowerment zone, we decreased the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels below by 9%, which again, in this very challenging year is a data point that I'm incredibly proud of our staff for, and our students and our families, because we were all working together. And then for reading, you can see that we have similar trends. And you can see that Harrison was able to decrease the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels below by 11%, which again, I applaud. And you can see that at Coquillard across the school year, they decreased the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels below by 9%. And across the empowerment zone, we were able to decrease the percentage of children 2 or more grade levels below by 7%. The second performance goal is increasing the number and percentage of students in Tier 1 on or above grade level in reading and math, comparing the same children who took the iReady benchmark assessment in the fall, winter, and spring. Same key, the dark green indicates more improvement, the green indicates improvement, yellow, no movement, and then red is negative movement. So as you look at this, this chart, you can see that we were able to increase across the empowerment zone in math, increase the percentage of children who are on or above grade level by 7%, from 9% to 16%. And you can also see that Wilson really accelerated by starting with 7% of kids on or above grade level at the beginning of the school year, and then ending with 18%, which represents an increase of 11%. Very impressive. And then you can see for Warren, while there was a decline, the winter benchmark, look at the growth that happened in the spring semester, which resulted in increasing the percentage of children on or above grade level by 9%. So very, very proud of those results. And then for reading, you can see that across the empowerment zone, we increased the percentage of children who are on or above grade level by 8%, from 13% to 21%. And then you can see that for Warren, they increased the percentage of children on grade level by 13%, and Wilson increased the percentage of children on grade level by 12%. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about school culture, and this quote from Dr. Joseph Murphy is that seeds of change will never grow in toxic soil. School culture matters, and it really does. And so there are a couple of different buckets that I'm going to share. The first is staff retention. So in the 2019-2020 school year, we retained 68% of our staff into the subsequent school year. This year, in our intent to return survey, 92% of our staff said that they intend to return. We will do a full analysis when we actually start the school year to see what our actual retention numbers were. But that is a huge increase, and I think really indicates the strength of the culture in some of our buildings and the movement that's happened there. Also, we increased student and staff voice by tracking their experiences by administering surveys, which was a little painful at first, and we had to work to get things right. I think we contributed to a bit of survey fatigue at first, but we got really great feedback from our families and from our staff saying, we think you should move to administering this monthly. And so what happens now is we administer the survey, we streamline the actual questions, and we have partners who give us data visualizations on, what the surveys are telling us and help us understand what the trends have been. And so here's an example of our K2 elementary survey questions. So you can see very simple questions, I like school, my teacher is nice, my principal is nice. And then you can see some of the data here that correlates, right? So we can see my teacher's nice, my teacher helps me, my principal's nice. And our goal for all of these is really that 80% of our children will agree or strongly agree. You can see that we have some work to do, but again, in the midst of this year, I think that, we showed really good growth here and really exciting growth. We also give a survey tailored to our 3 through 5 students. And you can see here some of the comments or some of the questions that we ask. A little more complex because it can handle a little more complex questions. And you can see here some of those results. Again, 80% is our goal, but I believe in celebrating growth, even if it's not quite hitting the benchmark. I believe that this data represents an improvement over where we were in 2019, 2020. And so I think it's something to be celebrated. And then for Navarre, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, we ask a series of questions, and here are just some of them. And you can see here, their responses disaggregated by grade level. And so you can see here, this high expectations one is really close to 80 and surpasses in some grade levels. Feeling that their teachers and principals believe in them surpassed our target of 80%. Principal being friendly, Principal Boyd being friendly, and the assistant principals at the team at that school, you can see also surpassed. But again, it's important for us as we move into next year to really be very data-driven and data-focused. And so, this is the baseline as we think about next year, and we'll continue to track these results across the next school year. We also give staff culture and experience survey, and these are the questions, some of the questions that we ask. And here you can see disaggregated by school, sort of where we fell. And what's really helpful about this data is that it really helps drive our strategy. So when I presented last month to you about sort of the restructure of how we're going to be supporting instruction, increasing instructional coaches, sort of rethinking the model that we had, you can see that was really in response to data like this that just said that, that professional learning in many ways was helpful, but that there were some things that were missing, right? And so just wanting to really honor the true experience that our staff have. You can also see here, communications generally falls short of that 80%. And that's why we built into our staffing for next year, somebody who's going to focus, like their job will be on communications. We also opted into that centralized menu service from the corporation. And so we know that we'll be getting some support from that team as well. Crisis Prevention Institute training and certification. This training focused on de-escalation techniques, which is something that's really, really important for all of our staff to have. I want to, shout out our student and school supports team for all the hard work that they did to get these trainings off the ground and to get these numbers that you can see on the screen, which 97% of our core instructional staff are now certified in de-escalation strategies. And you can see 95% of our administrative support staff, 100% of our student and school support staff. These numbers are really going to support our continued upward trajectory around school culture next year and are very exciting. And here you can see some photos. Isa's team, Isaías Solis, our current executive director of student and school supports, but soon to be deputy empowerment zone chief. He basically celebrated each staff with his team, and it was really nice. They had food, they had little celebrations, high fives, and people were really proud of getting their cards and their certification. Looking at culturally responsive positive behavior interventions and supports, really that work this year focused on data-informed systems of support. So I will never say that we have arrived. We certainly have not, but we are farther up the mountain than we were when we started the school year. And our goal was to have, when we look at our implementation, which is measured by something called the tiered fidelity inventory, it's just a list of things that should be in place in a high-performing PBIS school. When we look at that, our goal was to have 80% reached as we looked at each school by the spring of this year. And you can see here that we didn't meet the goal across the empowerment zone, but we got really close. We also had 2 schools that did meet that goal and really significant growth across all of our schools. So again, something to be celebrated, a great foundation upon which to continue to build our work next year. Family partnership. I love this quote. It's from Dr. Karen Mapp, who's a professor at Harvard. And she said, one of the things that many people said and is actually borne out through the research is that the relationship, the development of relational trust between home and school is key for any other partnership work to actually take place. So in our empowerment zone, we really are about doing the deep, hard work of building trust, because we know that we have to move out of, sort of surface and transactional interactions into deep ones that build trust between families and our school staff, and that hold our students at the center of that partnership. And so we also administered a family survey, and you can see some of the questions we ask here. My child was treated with respect, care, and love. I felt like I was a partner with my child's teacher. I feel like my family was treated like an important part of the school community, just some of the examples. And here you can see our survey data across schools. Again, each school is in its own place. Each school started in a very different places. And so I think what we see here, while some aspects are missing, the 80% goal, this is really exciting. The thing that we're really doubling down on and focusing on for next year is how to increase the survey participation so that we can truly know that it's really driving towards what we need. And then student enrollment. So the Thomas B. Fordham Institute has done some research on why parents pick different schools. And one of the things that we pulled was this quote, which says, better discipline, better learning environment, smaller class sizes, and improved student safety were identified as top factors for choosing a school. And I can say, you know, with absolute confidence that we have absolutely leaned in towards each of these things this year, and we'll continue to do that next year. And you can see here the trends for enrollment across our schools. You can see the breakdown of where the students have sort of increased, been steady increase throughout the year. And you can see Harrison, you know, increased by 31 students overall, Coquillard by 30, Navarre by 26, Warren by 21, and Wilson by 12. And then you can see the grade level distribution of that growth. And you can see that most of that growth occurred at the kindergarten level, but also at the 7th and the 8th grade level. So, you know, again, the more we can sort of slice and dice our data and see what's happening and what the trends are, the better we can really focus our strategy to continue to secure the wins that the Empowerment Zone and our staff secured this year. So I started with the mountain quote, and I'm going to end with this, which is, you don't climb mountains without a team. You don't climb mountains without being fit. You don't climb mountains without being prepared, and you don't climb mountains without balancing the risks and rewards. And you never climb a mountain on accident. It has to be intentional. And so as I think about all of the work that's been done this year to contribute to the results that I just shared, I want to shout out our staff and their intentionality and their willingness to take risks in service to our children, and their willingness to really lean into being prepared through professional learning and collaboration, and really leaning into team, which has been a huge focus for us this year. How do we make sure that we're all contributing to a healthy, productive team and not a dysfunctional one? And I want to applaud our team for doing that, because that's the very thing that they've done this year. Additionally, you know, this is a picture from some of our Harrison children. We had a week in January where we just really celebrated our children and did little things like gave them wrist bracelets like this. But I just was struck by this picture as I was reviewing our year, and just the power of it, the power of everyone standing together and really focusing on these qualities, on peace, on being brave, on believing in what we're doing, on love. All of these things are critically important to our work. And then I want to end with this quote, this last one, which is, children are the promise of the future, the assurance of greater things to come. Our children inspire me deeply. And as I think about the work that we're doing in the Empowerment Zone, I do believe that it's going to leave a legacy that's going to support our children in continuing to be the best that they can be and to have all of the choices in the world when they leave school. And then I just wanted to end with these cute little pictures, 2 of our staff members, beautiful babies, wearing their Little Leaders shirts, because again, there's something that's intangible about what we're doing. I just shared a bunch of results around academics, culture, and family partnership and enrollment, but there's something about really having the orientation that our children are leaders and that we're grooming them to step into those leadership roles and to be leaders as they move through the world. So thank you very much. That is my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Hey, Dr. Camacho, thanks for the information. One question I wanted to ask, I was looking through the enrollment trends earlier today, and I just want to make sure I understand if you have the information on this or not, is when you look at from the, say, the beginning of the school year towards the end and the count, is that able to take into account students that, because of the pandemic or virtual, or were just going to homeschool or remote learn, and then maybe came back online, you know, within the traditional school format? Would that, I just want to make sure I understand, like, are we able to figure any of that out or measure that, or does that come into play, or is it a true representation of apples to apples? Just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that the enrollment data that I shared with you, it represents students who learned remotely, and it represents students who were in person. So after January, we brought back all of our children in person. We welcomed them back, but some families chose to continue to keep their children virtual. So those numbers are represented there. The other piece is that Navarre had a sheltered e-learning model for the whole school year because of student transitions and just wanting to make sure that everybody was good. But what you see are actual numbers of students that were enrolled in our empowerment zone schools. It's not like if they became virtual, they were suddenly not enrolled and then maybe we're kind of bringing them back in person and it changed the number. So the numbers you see are clean numbers.
That's okay. Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. And then one other question, sorry. On the survey, do you and staff develop the questions, or how did we come up with the questions to ask the students?
Yeah, so the questions actually came from foundationally student climate surveys that exist, but we infused also principal voice in there with specific questions they thought were important and some that I thought were important, like just how is lunch and breakfast also, so we can track that. So it was a collaborative endeavor.
Okay. Some of them, again, the reason I asked, some of them seem to, by no means am I a survey expert, so let me just say that. But some of them seemed, I don't know if it's fair to say they were a little bit leading to an answer or not. They were all very positive, which is okay, I guess. I just trying to understand some of the background, how they were developed. So.
Sure, I would welcome a conversation to hear more from you about which questions you think are leading. And the other thing that's important to note is that we have contracted with folks who build data dashboards and who do this sort of work like for a living. And so they're going to be advising us on, the survey questions we bring into next year. One thing that we know is that we probably need to narrow the questions we're asking so we can have real focus, but they'll be advising. But I welcome a conversation about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to make a comment of just how great the scores are in terms of that growth. So seeing something go from a 7% to a nearly 20% is not just an 11-12% gain, right? That's almost 200-300% improvement. And so those gains are great. And I know we're seeing the biggest gains at the primary level, which kind of proves out that adage, right? Preparing children at their youngest is the most impactful long-term, because we do see the kind of the smallest percentage gains at Navarre. And I assume that probably is the case as they get older and older, right? The gains are harder. So I don't know if there's ways to kind of look at some of those scores that way, but I'm really impressed by that. I think, I'm glad that those gains are happening. And I think that shows that long-term we'll continue to see that growth as the children we're helping at the primary center the most will continue to be able to excel and be, the leaders we know they can be as they get older. So half comment, not really a question, but glad to see that improvement is impressive. Now I saw any other questions. I think I saw a co-host given to our next principal that's going to speak. So I think we're probably almost there, unless anybody has questions.
Sam, I would just say less of a question, more of a comment. Dr. Camacho, thank you for your leadership on this. I think this has been very important from the beginning for us to be able to track progress and sort of analyze those data points and see that we're chipping away. I think as a community, we want to go from 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds and know that that's not possible, and appreciate the approach that you've put in to sort of move this in the right direction, and know that it's a heavy lift and it doesn't happen without your strong leadership and the team that you've put around you to implement that as well too. But and as much as we want to celebrate success, I think all of us are unanimous in our thought that we still have a long way to go, and that we've let these kids down for a long time. And I'm glad that we're headed in the right direction, and I appreciate your report on that tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. I completely agree with you. We are not on the top of the mountain. We have a long way to go. And I appreciate you applying the work of the team. They have worked really, really hard through a tough year. And like I said, I think this year has given us a good foundation upon which to build more progress next year.
Just a quick comment to all in the Empowerment Zone, teachers, staff, principals, Dr. Camacho. But in particular, I want to call out your insistence that this work is rooted in love, that it's work that is relational and it's centered in communities and families. And so I think as we celebrate scores and percentages and all that positive good work, that we also remind ourselves that at the end of the day, this is labor of love. And so I'm so thankful for your vision in that way and supports you and everyone in the zones. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We have an amazing team serving amazing students and families. Thank you.
With that, I think we can move to the next item on our agenda, and that is the 2021-2022 school improvement plans. And first up, I think, is Wilson.
If I could just say a few words before Samantha starts, I just want to applaud our principal team for navigating through an incredibly challenging year, holding things together for their staff, their students and their families. Everybody had challenges that fell well outside of what we're used to sort of dealing with and navigating. And so, you know, each principal has spent a lot of time putting a lot of thought and care into their school improvement plans for next year. And I just wanted to affirm them for that work before we hear from them. So thank you, principals.
Thank you, Dr. Camacho. Good evening. I am Samantha Smith, proud principal of Wilson Elementary School. Prior to sharing the outline of our school improvement plan, I'd like to first begin by thanking the South Bend Empowerment Zone Board and Dr. Camacho, as well as the executive team, for your support in such a trying and complex school year. We had to undergo many changes and challenges, but we came out still smiling and celebrating our adaptive and resilient staff and our supportive families, as well as our hardworking students. I'd like to also share a little bit of my why I'm doing this. And many of you have heard my why and some of you have not. And I'll say that my journey in making an impact in staff, families, and students' lives was not an easy, smooth sailing ride. It was in 4th grade when I realized I wanted to be an educator. And that was because I had an amazing, impactful 4th grade teacher. And I had big dreams all through middle school and high school, and continue to have those dreams even during a time of learning, who was truly for me and who was against me after finding out that I was pregnant at the age of 17, which happened to be my senior year. I even had a teacher who attempted to speak negative words in my life about dreams only being just that, a dream. So it's only right for me to thank my village who pushed me to accomplish my dreams. My village being of those who are still here and those who have gone away. And by giving back what they gave me to my staff, family, students, and community is something that is very passionate to me. They say it takes a village to raise a child, and I am a witness of that to be true. I am who I am because of my village, and now it's my turn to be a village by making an impact through joy, encouragement, motivation, and most importantly, what we spoke a lot here on this call is love. I do not take my calling for granted. I will cultivate the greatness that exists within each child to confidently pursue their dreams in our city, nation, and world. And I will do this by harnessing the power of community and relationships to ignite transformation, part of our vision and our mission. I am beyond excited about what's to come next year as far as growth in academics and social and emotional. We were able to eliminate academic and social and emotional gaps even through a pandemic. So I can only imagine what we will do next school year with even more support. So I have 2 people from our teacher leadership team who will join me in presenting an outline of our school improvement plan. After I share our challenges and root causes, Natalie McCullough, our resilient resource teacher, will share SMART goals and leadership and school actions that will align with the challenges. And then you will hear from our amazing assistant principal, Jermaine Smith, and she will share SMART goals and leadership and school actions that align with our challenges as well. All right, can we see my screen? Perfect. Okay. So here is our 5-year improvement focus, and you'll notice that we are getting ready to head into the 21-22 school year. And so next year is our 3rd year of the Empowerment Zone, and the overarching focus will be on building systems of support and implementing a robust intervention and enrichment model. We also have the school improvement planning process for the 21-22. I want to say that multiple voices were involved in the Empowerment Zone school improvement planning process. Those voices included the school improvement leadership team, the parent advisory council, student, staff, and family surveys, family needs assessment, as well as the principal team. And I cannot go without thanking and recognizing our amazing school improvement teacher leadership team. You'll see over on the left side, those are all of the dates that we met. Sometimes we met a little bit more just so that we can get this right. And those that I would like to recognize is Megan Connors, who's our kindergarten teacher, Beth Grinnert, our 2nd grade teacher, Laura Hasty Kovaleski, who's our speech pathologist, Lorena Jacobs, our art teacher, who is retiring this school year, Natalie McCullough, our resource teacher, Jermaine Smith, our assistant principal. So I want to speak about the school level challenges as well as the root causes here. And you'll see that we have 3 buckets: the academic instruction, the school culture, and the family and community engagement. So we'll start with the academic instruction, and the school level challenges that Spring I-Ready diagnostic data revealed that 38% of our students are 2 or more grade levels below in reading, and 34% are 2 or more grade levels below in math. And we believe the root cause of this to be is the shortfall in classroom management skills, increased need for school level professional support, lack of instructional practice such as scaffolding, and intervention strategies that have not been effectively incorporated into the grade level curriculum. For our second bucket, the school culture, the engagement of all staff members in equity practices, our root cause we have listed as varied experiences and backgrounds, lack of focus and emphasis on dynamics within subcultures, and the need for school level professional development on equity practices. And the last bucket, family and community engagement. The school level challenge for that is engagement in 2-way authentic collaboration with families and the community about school and student needs and accomplishments. And our root causes are parents were not a part of identifying and developing a plan to meet student needs, resulting in lack of clarity, understanding, and therefore buy-in. So I'm going to pass this on to Natalie McCullough, who will speak on the academic instruction and speak on the SMART goals, as well as leadership and school actions that are aligned with the challenges.
Okay, so our SMART goal for our academic instruction is that 100% of our students who are 2 or more grade levels behind, that means 38% below in reading and 34% in math, will grow a minimum of 1.5 grade levels in reading and math based on the I-Ready by the end of the year I-Ready diagnostic benchmark during the 2021-2022 school year. And so our actions for that will be that we will maintain the time set aside to support teachers. We will continue to use the selected curriculum and zoom in on those critical standards. We will develop teacher competencies for integrating research-based strategies and scaffolding into grade level curriculum. We will set up expectations and scheduling that supports intervention specialists, special education, and bilingual specialists to participate in collaboration. Another goal we have is all administrators and instructional coaches will provide bi-weekly, data-driven, relevant, effective feedback. And our actions for that is we will use the see it, name it, do it feedback strategy, and we will protect time to engage in modeling, practice, and feedback.
and our school culture. Mr. Main-Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I will focus on our school culture. As a school, we are committed to harnessing the power of culture to build equity. For the 21-22 school year, 100% of the Wilson staff, will engage in monthly school-level professional development to improve disproportionality of office referrals as related to subgroups. We will accomplish this by engaging staff in equity data talks and by incorporating equity-based training into staff professional developments. Additionally, 100% of our staff will demonstrate a belief that all students will achieve academically and socially by developing differentiated lesson plans and utilizing our student management system, Pearson 360, to recognize and increase students' positive achievements. To achieve this goal, we will continue trainings in culturally responsive positive behavior intervention systems, responsive classroom, restorative justice trainings, zones of regulations, Pearson 360, social emotional learning trainings, supports, and services. We will also bring in a dedicated peace builder as an additional support for our staff. Another area that we are focused on improving is our family partnership. Decades of research continues to validate the strong relationship between family engagement and children's academic and overall success. With this in mind, we have set a goal to improve communication effectiveness with our families by increasing the number of families who read the Wilson monthly newsletter from 20% to 60% by the ending of the 21-22 school year. We will achieve this goal by layering our communication. We will utilize our all-call, email technology, paper and electronic versions of our newsletters, community-based activities, the Wilson experience of contacting our parents on a weekly basis, text magic, and social media. We will also incorporate family incentives. Finally, we are convinced and believe in the benefits and value of partnering with our families. We will develop a Wilson parent team, which will consist of a minimum of 10 parents that represents each grade level, reflects all demographics, and represents the various neighborhoods that make up our student body by September 1, 2021. Our school administrators, fax personnel, and social workers will spearhead the development and the partnership of our parent team.
Okay, and we wanted to end with a quote. As good as we are, we can always get better. And we are Wilson strong, but we know we have a lot to work on and we definitely want to get better.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And rolling next to our agenda item will be Warren.
Good evening, Zone Board, Dr. Camacho, all my colleagues from various schools. Donna Beasley, have you had the opportunity to share your screen? It's my honor to be here. I think you are aware that I am in the twilight of my career as I am retiring at the end of this school year. So as you see, it's the outgoing principal, Patricia Grupp, and Dr. Libby Wilson will be coming in to carry on the great work that we've accomplished, that we've started at Warren Elementary School. So this is a plan that, of course, I have put together with my team, knowing that she will at some point take a look at this and make her have her input on this as well. So. All right, again, you're seeing the same slide, but we're on good foundation here with the work that Dr. Camacho has set up for us, building a strong foundation in 1920. And then here we are this year, having gone through quite an experience together with COVID, and we did it. We've made gains, we've had some falls, but something we say in the empowerment zone is that we fail forward. So we are going to continue to be doing that as we move forward and heading into next year. All right, the school improvement planning process, it's complex. We have input from so many different directions. Dr. Camacho and her team has done a great deal of work to receive perspective at her level. And then we too work to get input from our school community, which includes parents and teachers and students, and to develop this plan that we are working towards next year. So our school improvement leadership team includes Amanda McCormick, Alexandra Cooper, Donna Beasley, Cindy Dreesen, and myself. And again, you could see these dates, and I have to tell you, we've squeezed in additional dates on top of this. So these teachers have really put in extra work on top of their regular work day and could not have done this work without their incredible input. So I publicly want to say thank you to them for that. So I'm going to hand it off a bit to my wonderful colleagues, Donna Beasley. If you want to go ahead and get started with math and reading, try to shine a light on what some of the challenges are that we have at Warren.
Okay. So in math, we found out that 26% of our students performed on grade level in the spring, and in math. And in reading, we had 32% of our students performed on grade level in the spring testing. And we need those numbers to be much higher. And we've looked at the root cause of that, and the lack of foundational skills in all domains in math is what we have discovered is one of the root causes. And the other thing is inadequate teacher experience and development. We have a lot of new teachers this year. So that we came up with is probably the root cause for both reading and math. School culture, I believe, is Cindy.
Just a moment, Donna, if I could. Typically we would look at iLearn data to create our school improvement plans. However, that data is really old, as we did not give that assessment last year. So it's a 2-year-old data set. So that's why we chose to use our iReady ongoing data to make our plans for next year. I believe school culture. Alex, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Are you able to share about school culture?
Yes, I can go ahead and read it. So we've talked about the office referrals. That was our main focus for our school culture for the African-American and Black students. And they are disproportionately high as compared to the overall total population. So we discovered that the root cause of this is the staff demographic does not reflect the student population. Cultural competency has not been thoroughly developed in staff members, as well as student social, emotional, and academic needs are not being met.
Thank you, Alex. We know that this is a systemic issue that the staff does not, the students are not seeing themselves reflected in staff, and that is something that's going to take time to have a change. But I know that's something that we pay attention to in hiring practices to get the absolute best person in every position that we can. We do need to have continual ongoing cultural competency development. I think we'll get to that in our next slide, but thank you, Alex. And Cindy Dreesen, Assistant Principal, I believe you're going to share on family partnerships.
Yes, thanks, Pat. Family partnerships. We have noticed a low parent participation in several areas, PTO meetings, culturally responsive PBIS, family surveys, parent-teacher conferences, and other various activities. And we value those parents, and we need to get them in and work towards a higher participation. We feel that there are several reasons for that particular situation. One is a misinterpretation of actions between school and parents, probably over a long period of time, leading up to probably a very strong lack of trust. Additionally, maybe historically weak relationships between some parents and school personnel. We have seen parents turning around and starting to really trust and build relationships, and we're working hard to build those too. That is not work that we can ever stop doing.
Thank you, Cindy. Donna, can we take a look at what are some of our plans?
Our academics and instructions, our SMART goal is we would like 40% of our students will perform on grade level on the iReady diagnostic assessment in May, in math in May of 2022. So we have high level goals for iReady. Black African Americans, we want them to go to from 15 to 35%. English language learners, we'd like them to go to 14 to 34%. And special education, we'd like them to go from 11% to 31%. It's about the same thing in reading. We would like 45% of our students to perform on grade level on the diagnostic assessment in May. And you can see the breakdown of that, the high level goals. We'd like the Black African Americans to go up to 44%, English language learners to go up to 41%, and special education up to 41%. The way we're going to do that in math is we will strengthen our tier 1 math instruction, strengthen our tier 2 and tier 3 instruction, and provide support for the teachers to implement curricula with fidelity. That is both in reading and in math.
Thank you, Donna. I just want to add that we know that there will be great supports from the Empowerment Zone with the trainings that they will have. Our teachers have taken on so many new curriculums this year, and they've done an incredible job under the extraordinary circumstances. So I'm excited, even though I won't be there. I'm really excited that they're going to be able to add layers to their knowledge and their implementation as they move forward next year. I know that Dr. Camacho has great plans for having incredible intervention opportunities for our students. And we know that when we can meet our students exactly where their needs are, that we are going to make gains. So I really do see next year as a powerful year for staff and students. All right, Ms. Beasley. Okay. Alex, Ms. Cooper?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so here our SMART goal for school culture. We've decided that disciplinary, by May of 2022, disciplinary incidents will proportionally reflect the demographics of the school population. And then we have a breakdown of African American. Our Black population is currently, as of April 4th, 2021, our population is at 32%. But those office referrals for African American and Black are at a 61.6%. So our actions then to progress is to provide high quality restorative justice trainings, just a continuation of what we've already been doing. Strengthen restorative approach and practices, ongoing training of CRPBIS expectations to all staff and students, and then again to strengthen tier 1 systems and supports for attendance, academics, and behaviors.
Thank you, Alex. I will say that we do know that that number has been declining through the year. It's that 61.6% has steadily been dropping. I forget how high it was, but through the work that Ms. Dreesen has been doing with students and staff members, kind of really understanding how to respond to students in a different way, we are seeing that drop. So we're headed in a good direction, but with all these additional supports, I know that we can get that to drop to be more in proportion as well. Okay.
In the area of family partnership, our SMART goal, we would like to provide opportunities for families to participate in and maybe more important, to help develop school initiatives. We want to increase that by 50% before or no later than January of 2022. Several ways that we're going to accomplish that would be to, in collaboration with this empowerment zone, provide high quality training on dual capacity, building framework for family and school partnerships. We want to launch a parent leadership that is representative of our school population. We want to support all stakeholders in building high quality relationships with families and our community. And additionally, we do want to provide opportunities for staff and community to come together in other ways as well, not maybe more socially as well, just to get to know each other. We think that's important too. So there are our partnership goals.
Thank you, Ms. Dreesen. We have made gains here. You know, there's been an entire shift of mentality of relating with parents from we're the school authority and listen to us because we said so, to a help us understand what your needs are so we can support your child as they are going through, you know, gaining their education. So we've got a good foundation to continue to grow on. Thank you, Ms. Dreesen. All right, and something that we've said all year at Warren is that be the buffalo and charge the storm. And what that means is we need to know what the truth of our data is, make a plan and go after it. So while Dr. Camacho is working to climb the mountain, we are working to charge the storm. And I know that Warren is going to be in good hands with Dr. Wilson as she takes over and charges the storm on behalf of the Warren staff and leads the Warren staff. So thank you, my team, so much for helping support. Alex, where are you headed? What state are you in? You're
We're
on
going
mute.
to North Carolina.
Well,
Just so we're
safe
clear.
travels, and thank you. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to help us with this tonight. I appreciate it. If there are any questions or comments at this time.
I've got a question. I'm not sure. It may be more of a general Dr. Camacho kind of question. It isn't meant necessarily for you, but it's really about the collection of data. So when we look at things like iReady data, I think what's confusing to me is sort of how readily that is available, you know, to kind of help inform decisions. So do kids, take it in the fall and you get the results, 6 months later? Is it pretty instantaneous? Can maybe one of you just sort of help us understand how readily available that data is?
Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Well, you can get it weekly, basically, to see how students are performing on a weekly basis. It depends on the kind of report you choose to generate. However, there is a beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year data set that we really work to collect to see that what kind of changes have taken place with student progress.
The other thing that I would mention is that when Pat says weekly, so there are different components to iReady, and it's available basically instantaneously. As soon as the child takes the assessment, we can go in and we can see where they've tested. The other component of iReady that has been really great is it creates, based off those benchmark tests, it creates an individualized pathway. So children can get on there and practice the skills that the test shows they need to practice. And so across the empowerment zone this year, one of the things that we set was a goal for the number of minutes that kids would be on there. I think the sweet spot is 40 minutes, per week. And so we were rewarding children and tracking that. And that's what Pat's talking about. You can also go in and see, how's the child practicing? Are they advancing? Are the things too hard? They need to be adjusted down. So it's a really, really important tool.
So thank you to the last group of presenters. I'm sorry, I can't grasp everyone's name. Hi, okay, Patricia, okay. And I want to thank you for kind of being bold and truthful about numbers that sometimes aren't reflective of maybe our best hopes and dreams for student populations, in particular, the referral rate for Black African-American students being twice that of representative, student populations at the school. And I appreciate you commenting that over this last year that you have seen a reduction maybe in those percentages. So I appreciate that, definitely. My question has to do also with, your findings were really interesting in terms of maybe having teaching staff that was not reflective necessarily of the student population. And then identifying that, being courageous and identifying those numbers. And then I'm wondering then moving forward, what plans are in place to work with teachers that are on staff, and seeing something like cultural competency as ongoing work. It's like lifelong learning work, and what plans are in place, I guess, to really kind of bring your fabulous staff together and work on becoming more and more culturally responsive and inclusive.
Well, we are all of our schools are part of the CRPBIS, which is Cultural Responsive Perform. I forget the particulars, but this is ongoing work that we do. Dr. Camacho, you may have more that you want to add, what your plans are to help develop staff members in this cultural relationships as well.
Yeah, so we have in the empowerment zone, we also have a strategy team, which is comprised of our principals, our assistant principals, instructional coaches, and then like functional team leads. And this year we've been engaging in some learning together around what it looks like to lead in a culturally responsive way. That work will continue next year. And I think it's important for us to lay the foundation with our leadership team first. And then, of course, as they build their competence and their ability to sort of navigate those conversations and also to really think about data in that way, we will be, in future years, also looking at bringing that to the rest of our staff. But we need to start with the leadership team that's going to have to hold the work, in each building.
Thank you.
So moving on down our list, but Pat, congratulations. Thank you for the hard work. Enjoy retirement.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you as part of our team. I know we shared some stuff on social media congratulating you on retirement, and thought I'd make sure I mentioned it here before we moved on.
Thank you. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to work in this empowerment zone as I'm closing out my career. It's a great capstone to a great career. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. All right, the next school up is going to be Navarre.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am, there we go. Hoping my camera was going to focus there. Hello, Dr. Camacho. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to our board president and to our other South Bend Empowerment Zone board members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Nathan Boyd, proud principal of Navarre Middle School. I'm going to introduce my most talented team here in just a moment, but I have got to take a second and share my why as well. I heard my colleague, Mrs. Smith, share a few items, and I too take this role very serious. This is a personal mission. This is a personal mission. As I walk through these doors every day, I'm at the building right now. I see my own children. I see my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, across Indiana. I see them every time I walk through this building, and not pursuing excellence and achieving success for our children. It's a complete non-negotiable. We do this work because our children deserve nothing but the best. And so what better way to make sure they are achieving that than to be a part of it. And I am very thankful that I've been given this opportunity to walk this road, to be on this journey with some very talented and passionate people that I will be on this call sharing this screen with here in just a moment. We have 6 members of the Navarre Middle School team here. And as I go in to share my screen, I just want to talk a little bit about our journey at this moment. All right, I believe I'm on the right screen here. So I want to share, several components of our school improvement plan. As you know, the middle school, what we call the secondary environment, there are some very complex measures that are part of the work that we are pursuing. However, what you're going to see is literacy is a part of every single component. I have to applaud Dr. Camacho's leadership. I refer to her often as our North Star. And she's been that. She's been a very constant and steady beacon, and the leadership she has provided has allowed us to really pursue excellence, and it's allowed us to have discussion and tackle some very difficult conversations that might have been silent before. And so this year, this third year, our overarching focus is really about systems. It's about building systems around supporting our children. I can tell you that our executive team, led by Mr. Solis, has really allowed us to lean into some measures to where if our families needed support, in years past, I had to point them in different directions. And there's been no other resource, better resource than the one that we've been able to accumulate here at Navarre Middle School. And we're still on that path. As we move into next year, MTSS is going to be a very big focus as we work on supporting our children better in the classroom as well. Many of our goals that you see are really circled around those items. Again, the school improvement process, our teacher leadership team was really deep. And this past year, culture, really reestablishing a healthy culture was a focus of ours. Despite a difficult year, what I've called the year of COVID, it remained an item that we've leaned into. So as we talk and share items about our school improvement plan, our teachers remained very active and shared their voices, not only in our staff meetings, but also with our student, parent, as well as staff surveys, as you see listed here at number 3. Family survey participation is an item that you'll see in some of the work that we're going to show. That's going to be a major focus of ours, how we are keeping our families involved. We want our parents to be engaged, and we want our parents to know that they have a voice that we're listening to. So that's a part of our strategy moving into the next year. And obviously, sharing with our principal team, I've got some colleagues here in the empowerment zone that I'm not afraid to lean on, and I appreciate the collegiality that we've been able to establish this year. As you see here on this slide, these are the dates that our teacher leadership team had formally met, but of course, there are the informal moments. There are the interactions in the hall. There are the discussions with email and back and forth conversations that really help flavor the work when we sat down in our formal spaces that you see here on this slide. I'm very proud of our school leadership team. Joining us will be Jasmine Brown, Navarre Middle School's 2021 Teacher of the Year. She is on this call. Valeria Chamorro is also on this call. She's a social studies teacher as well. Jonathan Duranlu is not a part of the call today. He just got married a couple days ago. He wanted to join, but I told him he better not. Tried to give him some wise words of wisdom and said, you need to pay attention to what's important right now. So he's with his new wife. Mrs. Gabrielle Hernandez is on this call. She's one of our instructional coaches. Jennifer Roden is also on our call, and Stephen Smith, another one of our teachers, will not be on the call, but he is a valuable member here at the school. And I also must say that I have some instructional leaders that are also here. My assistant principal, Mrs. Melanie Hackett, as well as Carlisha Gatson. So I'm going to turn this slide over to Mrs. Jennifer Roden. We're going to talk about just a couple of our school level challenges that we want to identify and prioritize moving into the next year.
Yeah, and as all of our teams were kind of going over the data, we came to kind of two of the biggest challenges that we feel like we're facing as a school. And the first one is just a really clear understanding that in our secondary level, in math and reading, 81% of our students are 3 or more grade levels behind. And the root cause that we think is not leading to more growth in this area is the fact that we really need to get our teachers in the gen ed classroom differentiating all the way down to our students' current positions. And there is a difference between how you teach 3rd grade and how you teach 6th grade. So this is having teachers that are really starting to become masters in a couple of different worlds and a couple of different skills. And then when we take another look back, we're also looking at how do our families and students engage with us here at Navarre, and looking at our survey completion. And that data is a little bit lower than what we'd like. And even with that low turnout, we're still getting 50% of our families disagreeing with their statement that their child is receiving the supports that they need. And this is a big thing for us. Our families and our students need to feel the support and have that trust. So we're developing that trust. We're hoping to keep focusing on that. And we're also really trying to think of how are we communicating with the families and the students? And is that communication coming out with the love that we want to bring to our students? So those are kind of the big challenges we thought about and the causes that we think we need to start working with and going towards. Specifically, as we move into our school improvement plan with the academic and instructional focus, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Hackett, one of our APs, who's going to talk about how we're planning to actionize some solutions to these problems.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Roden. So we have a couple of SMART goals here. One in particular is for reading. So by December 15th, 70% of students will demonstrate growth in reading as measured by their Lexile reading score. And we have 3 different subgroups there, but we want to look at our leadership actions. So our PD and coaching cycle for staff will include introduction to the core elements of reading with school-wide techniques that all of our teachers will participate in, integrating phonics skills into intervention lessons, like using multisyllabic words and discussions, vocabulary using strategies like Freyer models, crystal ball words, comprehension strategies, and of course, fluency strategies with read alouds and reading for knowledge. The key to this approach, the literacy strategies will be embedded in all of our classes. So this is a school-wide push. So every teacher in our building every teacher is a reading teacher, every teacher. And for our math, by the end of Q1, all math teachers will engage all students using the station rotation strategy during math instruction 1 out of 5 days. And by the end of Q1, all math teachers will engage students in the error analysis protocol using the RACE model as a discussion framework. And our leadership actions will PD and coaching. The PD and coaching cycle for these will include the focus growth routine data process systems and ready math learning routines. So also our administrative team will engage in weekly math walkthroughs to ensure student engagement strategy is present using the math instructional practice guide walkthrough form.
All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about our school culture goals, and I'm going to invite Mrs. Brown to share a little bit here on this slide.
Good evening, distinguished board members and Dr. Camacho. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. My name is Jasmine Brown, and I am part of Navarre's TLT team. Tonight, I'll be talking about school culture and our SMART goal. By the end of September 2021, 100% of our teachers will be trained in using restorative language, mindset shift strategies, in line with restorative justice. Restorative Justice Committee will help facilitate development of plan. So by the end, we'll have a shown of 10% improvement in the implementation of restorative justice circles as measured by the Pearson 360 data collection logs. An additional 10% by the end of semester 2. So that's a total of 20% over the year. By the end of the first semester, December 2021, high quality restorative justice training will be completed for 100% of the administration, team leads, student leaders, parent leaders, and teacher leaders as well. To finish with leadership and school actions, I'll pass it over to Carlisha Gatson, our assistant principal.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Camacho. So Mr. Boyd talked about systems that we would be putting in place. So we would develop a clear discipline system that provides opportunities to address root causes, repair harm, and then allow students to take ownership over their behaviors. So this discipline system should follow the student code of conduct, of course, and guidelines for effective discipline. So we plan to train all staff using restorative language and restorative conversations to de-escalate behavior incidents, promote reflection, and prevent disciplinary referrals. We'll identify a menu of instructive, corrective, and restorative disciplinary interventions and staff who can deliver these interventions. These interventions may include restorative conversation, peace circles that was mentioned earlier, peer conferences, and/or alternative to suspension. We plan to identify a process for communicating outcomes back to the staff who refer the students for the restorative interventions and reintegrating students who were removed from their classroom or their school community. And then we also plan to establish procedures for staff, students, or families to request restorative practices. So if they want to have a restorative circle or restorative chats with their teachers, a staff member, or even a peer, that will be available to them. We are going to talk about school culture a little bit more. I'm going to pass this on to Gabriela Hernandez, and she's going to talk a little bit about culturally responsive teaching.
Awesome. So Navarre will champion cultural responsive teaching with our SMART goal being by the end of the first semester, 90% of families will answer strongly agree or disagree on the following focus questions of the survey. Over the past month, I got regular updates on my child's learning and progress from their classroom teacher. Over the past month, my child enjoyed going to school. Over the past month, I felt like my family was treated like an important part of the school community. Now, our leadership actions and school actions are going to be outlined in 4 main critical components: critical consciousness, developing culturally responsive teachers, promoting inclusive school environments, and engaging students, parents, communities. And then we will also have enrichment opportunities, which I will pass back to Mrs. Hackett.
Thank you. So we want our children to be fully enveloped by the school community and building that school culture. So we said by June of 2022, 45% of Navarre student population will be involved in an outside of the school day or extracurricular activity. And also by the end of the first semester, December 2021, 90% of students will answer strongly agree or agree on the following focus questions. So over the past month, I enjoyed going to school. We want our children to see joy in learning. So with this, we'll develop a variety of enrichment groups, chess, drama club, dance, etc., based on student interest surveys. And also over the summer, we're redesigning our elective programs. So Africana and Chicana studies, personal finance, young entrepreneurship, etc., to ensure they are standards aligned and incorporate the 4 C's for 21st century learning. So we want our children to communicate, collaborate, think critically, and demonstrate creativity when they're engaging in these classes.
Thank you, Mrs. Hackett. And so before we go to the family partnerships, I'm hoping that everyone is sensing the theme that we want school. If there's one wish that I could have, I want our children to see school, and especially Navarre, as relevant. We want them to want to be here. We want them to be here in this environment and feel a sense of belonging, to feel like there is something here for them. And it's our ownership to make sure that we are putting practices in place for that to occur, not only for children, for our families, as well as doing this work with teachers. Restorative language and the work around our restorative justice is meant to support everybody, not just the children and families, but it is supporting a whole healthy culture, which is a big part of our priorities moving forward. Now we're going to talk a little bit about family partnerships, and I invite Mrs. Chamorro to talk a little bit about our SMART goal as family partnerships.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Valeria Chamorro, and I am so excited to talk about family partnership. It was honestly one of my favorite things about being a part of the TLT. I'm going to start off with our 3 SMART goals, which you'll notice in a second we have planned to have down by the first semester of school next year. So first, we're going to have a fully operational parent advisory council containing at least 10 of our parents. And this will be launched 100% with council members that are trained and on board by September. And in October, we plan to have a Navarre parent leadership team develop. Their role is going to be to provide advice and assistance relating to academic achievement plans, programs, activities, resources, and services to families. And lastly, one of our last goals is by the end of the first semester, so around December or so, when we're looking at those surveys, we plan to have at least 90% of families will answer strongly agree or agree on the following focus question. So the question is, over the past month, if I needed support for my family, I knew who to contact at the school. And the way that we're going to achieve some of these, we're going to be looking at our leadership school actions is data tracking logs to share numbers and outcomes of family contacts. We plan to advertise about our PAC, so our Parent Advisory Council, in flyers, social media, mailing, and dialer call homes. We also plan to have personal invites to parent groups. This is to ensure that we are reflective of our overall student demographic. And we are also planning to offer community meeting points outside of the school. So a parent resource room will also be established at Navarre. School meeting workers will organize monthly parent meetings. We also have planned a school-wide calendar outlining the monthly activities. This is big for our families. I know personally, I had a lot of students would ask me all the time, what is going on? And so this is awesome that we're doing this. We're also going to be altering the times and locations of events as per the community input. So arranging activity calendars to expand invitations. We'll be offering topics to be parental relevant as per the data input results. And lastly, we're going to confer with our focus group, so our participants as well as non-participants, as to the improvement, lack of improvement, and direction of the parental programs. And I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Mr. Boyd to close us off.
All right, thank you there. So let's talk a little bit about our goal. And you know, I believe at the root of all development, at the root of this, we really have to focus on students belonging, students seeing that school is relevant. And when we talk about, you know, it's easy to talk about rigor, and it's easy to talk about those things, but without relationship, without a sense of belonging, and without making sure that our children can read, and then it's going to be an uphill battle and very difficult for us. So the quote we chose really has to do with literacy and why we think literacy really does even the playing field. Mrs. Hackett?
Yes. So with literacy comes academic success, informed decision-making, improved self-esteem, personal empowerment, greater academic opportunities, and active participation in local and global social communities. Ultimately, it's the gateway to lifelong learning. Without equity in literacy education, achievement gaps will persist, and too many students will not reap literacy's innumerable benefits.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any questions? All right. I want to thank you for this opportunity to present and share, you know, many of our priorities moving into next week. I have to tell you, school was difficult for me, and I started this presentation by sharing why this is a personal mission. Middle school was tough. Elementary was tough. If it wasn't for Mr. Klusmeyer, my high school keyboarding teacher, and my high school football coach, who was my first male mentor. I was a sophomore before I even had a male that I looked up to. And it just happened to be my football coach. He's the one that actually got me in line. And I'm not sure I'd be sitting in this seat if it wasn't for that gentleman. And although I'm thankful, it's way too late. Our young men and young ladies should be looking up to adults and having champions in their life long before that point of high school, because the truth is many of our students don't find that. They don't find that Mr. Klusmeyer. They don't find that Coach Marsh. And so we've got to do our part to stay reflectful and to continue to move towards more equitable opportunities. And I'm very thankful for this opportunity. Dr. Camacho, thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for the great work over there at Navarre. I know we've got a long journey ahead of us to continue to make the improvements that we need to support our students and families in the Navarre community. But thank you for the hard work to continue to push that forward. Appreciate your effort and the effort of the whole team. I know I got to sneak into the graduation ceremony that you all had, and it was special to see all the families there celebrating the success, and that success is happening at the school. So thank you. All right, so I saw Carla Lee is now co-host of this meeting. And so next up on our agenda is to hear from Harrison.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. As I set up my screen, I'll go ahead and send my salutations. Thank you, Board President, for the introduction. Thank you to the board members, and a special thanks to, obviously, our leader, Dr. Camacho, for all the things that she takes on a daily basis to ensure we have what we need to be successful. She often says that I'm setting you up for success. I'm setting you up for success. I'm positioning for you success. And she has not wavered from that commitment at all this year. So thank you on behalf of Harrison Elementary. So again, greetings from Harrison Elementary. Tonight, I'm joined by my Vice Principal, Ms. Doris Austin Phillips, as well as Assistant Principal, Mr. Juan Hernandez, and our leadership team. And present with us, we have Miss Terry Parker, and the rest of our team members, as they are leaders for a reason, are actually working summer school. So they are involved in the summer learning activity this evening. So again, thank you to the team who are the real champions of the work. Want to share with you a little bit of my why. Why am I here? Why is Carla Lee the principal, the proud principal of Harrison Elementary? So I sit in a unique position, and I think I've shared this with some of you, that not only am I the principal, but I'm also an alumna. And I wear that title very with high esteem, because I'm a lifelong resident of South Bend, but for the greater part of my life, I've been also a West Sider. So for those of you who may have heard, what's exactly what the West Sider, because I've not really heard that adjective or verb, because they can be both when it refers to the West Side of South Bend. And honestly, I don't know what that really means, but what I do know what it means as far as my why is I've been privileged to be all of my education experience to occur in South Bend schools. And so over the course of 30 some years, in fact, I just received my 35th year pin this year. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is. You know, I've seen the benefits of high quality education. I've also seen, unfortunately, the consequences of education that is not fulfilled. And so I'm here to do the work because our kids have been assembled to win. Dr. Camacho has assembled a team so that our students have the opportunities to win. And so in my commitment to that high quality education, I I want to be part of the story that is written. I think Sam said it earlier, or Jeff, well, for the students who have been marginalized and the families who have been marginalized. So we are their champions. As my colleagues have said, and also to Dr. Camacho, this has been a difficult year. No one, as wide as my tool belt and our tool belt is, no one helped me, or no one gave me or advised me the tools necessary to champion through leading through a pandemic. And I am prayerful that that I won't need those skills in the future. So with all that we have done over the course of this year, we are very proud of our work. However, we are also very aware that there is yet a lot of work to be done. But I am proud to say that we are in the process of doing the work. So that being said, again, in year 3, as we look to build systems of support and student and families in the intervention model, as we begin to enrich, that intervention, but also enrich our families and our students, and we as adult learners for school year 21-22. So as we look at, again, the school improvement and planning process, we wanted to ensure that our plan would not be a shelved plan, that it wasn't compliance and it wasn't a technical response to what we have to do as far as the accountability system to Dr. Camacho and SBEZ board and also the state of Indiana. But we wanted to ensure that we are in alignment with the success of all students. And to do that, we ensured that the voices of all members of Harrison community were part of the planning process. And so the ebb and flow that we created was, again, Dr. Camacho creating a learning system and tool and building our capacities as building administrators and TLTs, undergoing that training, and then following that training, using those tools that we learned to then collect and honor voices in the room or in the building. And we did that by creating or using our survey data, and also meeting with our certified and non-certified staff, and then bringing that information and exchanging that information and championing that information between all the groups to come up with the plans that we have tonight. So here are a list of our leadership team members. Again, tonight, thank you to Terry Parker for joining us tonight. And then again, we have other members who are currently involved in another professional learning or supporting their learning for their summer school positions that they are currently teaching. So throughout this document, you will see this theme of equity. And we've spent a lot of time over the course of the last year, 15 months, defining equity and what equity evidence looks like as we look at providing a quality education for our students. And so the 4 points that I would like to lift up tonight will be ensuring high outcomes for all participants, and that includes us as the adults. So we're not pointing the finger at students and pointing the finger at teachers, but we as the leaders in the building as well, ensuring high quality for ourselves and equity as well. Interrupting the inequitable practices, whatever they may be. If it's student arrival, it's the 7 hours or during the 7 hours that students are present in our buildings. If it's student dismissal, and as one of my colleagues mentioned earlier, if there are outside resources and our powerful SSST team led by Mr. Solis. So after school, during weekends, I've actually witnessed, and we've witnessed, when our students are in crisis and our families are in crisis, we are responding. It's not, well, return phone calls, let me see what else I can do. It is an immediate response. And that has been a major game changer this year. So thank you so powerfully much from that team. The evaluation of biases, what lenses or what beliefs or understandings are being brought to this work, and whether or not those biases are hindering the work. And then finally, the student-centered or centers of the student experiences and the outcomes. So you'll continue to see this throughout the presentation as well. Dr. Camacho has already shared some of our data for this year, but I just want to take a look at the
the first tier, tier 3 for the iReady reading, because I want us to be intentional and focusing on that, the arrow pointing down in that 9%. If we were looking or viewing a pyramid, that would be the top portion or the top third of the pyramid. We want that number. Typically, you don't want to see an arrow pointing down. But in this case, we want to see that arrow pointing down because we impacted students from tier 3 moving to tier 2 by 9%. And that's something that we do want to celebrate. And then as we look at math, we move that number by 11%. And again, we know that we have a long way to go, but we're pointing and heading in the right direction. But one thing that we also wanted to be cognizant and aware of is that we are going to, there is a need for changing that tier 1, our students who are on or above grade level, because what we've noticed is that we're losing our highest gaining students or students who are on or above grade level. We have some learning loss. And so being intentional around their learning plan for school year 21-22 as well. So again, as we transition through every portion of the presentation tonight, I am intentionally, or we have intentionally infused equity slides throughout the presentation because that is the lens that we are inviting you to view this presentation through. So some of our biggest school challenges that we've noticed were the 4 that you see before you, the rigorous practice of math and ELA curricula. And we found that through the root causes to the right of the screen, the high-level practices with multi-tier systems of support, family student voice, and teacher evaluation growth and performance. I just want to spend just a one moment on this screen for a moment and the teacher evaluation growth and performance. What we've noticed is that the growth and proficiency tool that we currently are utilizing is not currently lending itself to teachers being honest, having an open and honest dialogue about growth points that they would like to see for themselves in their practice without it necessarily indicating it's a deficiency on the tool itself. So that's some work that we would like to continue to work with over the next school year to demonstrate growth. An area of growth doesn't mean that you are not effective or highly effective. It truly transcends that you are aware of where your growth point is and us strategically planning around it. And again, the high level practice with NTSS, again, that has been a game changer in aligning clear pathways to support our students and removing those barriers for our students and families. When we look at our academic goals for next year, we have 2 academic goals for ELA. The first being a 3 to 5 band, and we broke that down by a 10% growth for our spring summative assessment. And we broke that down for grades 3 to 5 because 3 to 5 are the assessment grade level bands. And then we also wanted to pull apart and look at what the precursors would be for grades kindergarten through 2nd. And so they will also demonstrate a 10% growth on iReady instead of iLearn because those are not tested grade levels on their form of assessment using iReady. And then we are going to measure our growth and our academic plan with utilizing this question for our staff. The professional learning experiences that were available have been meaningful and or helpful to me. Again, building that capacity to help our, not only we as administrative learners, but also our other adult learners in the building. To the right of the screen, the final point, we have listed Maxwell's second of his 5 leadership capacities or competencies, and that is the leadership skill of permission. And skill of permission as defined by Maxwell is the practice of relationship. And that is the relationship being defined as people follow you as a leader because they want to, and they believe in the mission and vision and core beliefs of the school and the organization. And this is the capacity that we're using with our professional learning for next year, as well as the academic focus. So again, for math, we broke those down by 2 bands, 3, 5. leaning into the summative assessment of I Learn, and then band K2, leaning in the formative assessment of I Ready. And again, that same focus question. Here are some of the academic and instructional highlights that we've supplied also. And so we will move forward in the slide and allow a later time to review those. School culture, and I do have to apologize tonight because one of our shared leaders or presenters for tonight is feeling under the weather. So Mr. Hernandez is with us tonight. However, he is unable to join us as a presenter. So we wish you well, Mr. Hernandez. I hope you feel better. So again, our school culture, looking at what do we want our culture to look and feel like? We've created 4 SMART goals around these this band of school culture. So one being by September the 21st of this year, 100% of our students who need support will receive their second and third year interventions. We want to start the school year off knowing who our students are and what their needs are. And with using the Pearson Review 360 program, we're able to capture that data on day one. The same holds true with the operation and student leadership design that we want to, that we have designed for our students. Again, building their leadership capacity. So identifying 10 students, grades 3, 4, and 5, that we want to join as part of our leadership team to help guide us and bring voice of the student experience. And then the final goal for school culture, again, looking at our tier 2 and 3 students, what do we know? How do we know what they need? How are we going to gain that information? And how are we going to track that information? Again, with the SSS team led by Mr. Solis, we're able to gather that information and have it in a direct depository so that we can pull that out immediately in real time. And again, with a focus question being part of each domain and all the focus questions being embedded in the academic success of our students through the lens of equity, the focus question for students next year will be, my school has high standards for learning. And we are looking at a 90% agree or strongly agree response to that question. And again, here are some ideas and examples that we've used or plan to use for school year 21-22. And now I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Austin Phillips, who is our third presenter for this evening, as she will lead us through the family partnership presentation. Ms. Austin Phillips.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. We know that our family partnership is extremely important. We have excellent leaders in the zone, our fearless leader, principal, Mrs. Lee, as well as Dr. Camacho, our director, our superintendent. We also have outstanding teachers and very eager to learn students. And so we're missing that other leg of our table, and that's our parents. They are a very important part, and we have learned that our team want to make that an integral part of the zone, each school's zones. So by the end of December 21st, 100% of our administrators, our student, parent, and teacher leaders will receive training on the dual capacity framework for family engagement. That's a tool we'll use to measure how well we're doing in making sure our parents are an integral part of our school culture. By the end of the first semester, Harrison PBIS tiered fidelity inventory will demonstrate a 2. That means we will have at least 2 family members on our team. This year we had 1. We are going to work extremely hard to make sure we have 2. Next slide. Also, we are going to have a strong parent advisory council. Our goal is to have 2 parents, at least 2 parents per grade level, to ensure that we have at least 10 parents that is a part of our advisory council this year. And so our focus question is that I will receive regular communication about how my child is doing academically. We want to keep our parents focused on their child's learning. We also want to help make sure that our parents know we hear their voices. I was always impressed when I was doing a survey with a parent, and a parent would ask, "Do you really want to hear my voice?" And when we would say yes, they were always so excited to share more. So we want our parents to know that we do believe that they are their child's first teacher and that they are a very important part of us being successful. And some of the ways that we have done that, or some of our school actions, is to make sure we have monthly meetings with our parents, that they do know the success of their students or the areas of support their child may need. We want to make sure we continue to have phone calls and surveys, and that parents really know we are listening to them and we are changing our practices because of their voices. And then here are some of the lists of the engagement that we will continue to do and we will begin to do to ensure that our parents are our foundation. I can't stress that enough, how important parents are to the growth and well-being of not only Harrison, but of the whole zone.
Thank you, Mrs. Austin Phillips. And I wanted to take just one step back really quick and draw your eyes to the right side of the screen. We also want to develop, as we're looking at being transformational leaders and looking at all the competencies that a transformational leader has in doing this work. And part of that is making our learning visible as leaders. We don't have all the answers, nor should we have all the answers, which is why we have leaders in our building, whether they're families, whether they're students, whether they're certified, whether they're not certified. But one of the things that we as a leadership team, being the 3 administrators that reside at Harrison, is to really make our learning process visible. Where do we receive coaching? How do we access new knowledge? Where do we participate with professional learning? Because that is also part of the transitional piece of leadership, as well as when I spoke earlier about the relationship piece of Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. That is when people begin to shift their own thinking and beliefs, because they begin to follow and they begin to believe in your leadership, because it's not just what I say, but it's also what I do. And so we're really excited about that piece. And so throughout the presentation, you saw 5 pictures of our kiddos who graduated from kindergarten through 5th grade this year. The smiles and the effects that you saw on all of their faces, as well as our teachers, is the same smile and effects that we would like to see 7 or 12 years from now. And so as they continue their experience at Harrison, this is the hard work that we are committed to ensuring those effects. And so 2 quotes that will lead us through school year 21-22 is, our job is to set up students for success, not to describe it or define it. And the second one, equity-centered leadership centers student experiences and outcomes. And the final closeout for this evening is, and my colleagues have seen this several times, but this is a mural of Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, as we know, led numerous slaves from the South to the North to experience freedom. So I'm a strong believer in grit, the work from Dr. Duckworth, and as well as Carol DeWitt, Dr. DeWitt, in mindset, growth mindset. But there's also that third piece to the equation, and that's equity. And as Harriet Tubman led the number of slaves to freedom, one of the things that she also did was taught them the high and lows of the process. And transformational work has highs and lows. And it also requires that we have those three things. But that also stands true for children, that their successes, it's great to have the growth mindset and the grit, but we also are championed or responsible for ensuring that our students understand the highs and the low. And when you get tired, when you're exhausted, those tools and things that are necessary to get them through to reach their goal. So thank you very much. And we would love to hear questions or comments might you have.
And let's hold some questions till maybe the end so we can make sure we get through all the school presentations. But thank you, Carla, and your team over at Harrison for your hard work and dedication, and for the continued work on a plan to continue to improve over at Harrison. All right, so last school with the 2021-2022 school improvement plan will be Coquillart.
All righty, I just want to thank everybody for the presentations tonight. I am Dr. Reed, the proud principal of the Coquillart Comets, and we really fly high here. I wanted to start off talking about, the why for Coquillart. I'm an athlete, so if you don't like the Cubs, I don't know what to say to you, but Cubs are my team. If you're at the game, you don't know who's winning until you get home. But, growing up my freshman year, the story of my life was being on the football field. And I remember playing against a team, and I told myself, I'm faster than these guys. I'm stronger than these guys, but why can't I keep up on the field? And I didn't realize I didn't have football cleats. And that was the story of my life, not having traction because I didn't have the right tools to participate on the field. So I come from a place where those that need more are sometimes forgotten more. So that's kind of my story. And I just want to thank the board for listening to us today. Thank you for your belief in our scholars, our schools, and our mission. I also want to thank Dr. Camacho because she taught me true leadership this year. Sometimes you got to be on that balcony with her. She said, come up here with us and see how I see. She said, sometimes you have to lead by pushing. Sometimes you got to pull your team. Sometimes you got to be side by side by them. So I learned a lot from her throughout this school year. One of the things I tried to do is to be there to provide the traction for our team at Coquillart. That meant for me being in the hallways or being in that classroom. So I'm really thankful for the call today. And I am going to share my presentation and move to the next slide. So I definitely think that we're prepared for this school year. Everybody on this call from the empowerment zone is doing training and relay to prepare us for interventions and enrichment. So I think we're primed, coached, and ready to go for the next school year. I want to quickly get into my presentation so I can stick to 7 to 10 minutes. This is our team at Coquillart. When Dr. Camacho talked about that mountain you got to climb, it is exhausting. So a lot of my team right now is on a break. They're on vacation, they're resting. So I do have my wonderful AP here with me. I'm going to mention the rest of the team. Ms. Toscos, our first grade teacher, Ms. Beek, our first grade teacher, Mr. Merrill's, our librarian, and our PBIS team core. Mrs. Clayton, our second grade teacher, Ms. Morris, our instructional coach, and once again, Ms. Thomas, our AP. So I'm going to quickly share some of the things that we are going to focus on at Coquillart next year. Our school level challenges were clear to us. You couldn't hide them. Our reading scores showed that on the iReady diagnostic, only 19% of our students were on or above grade level. And one of the things that we want to focus on is making sure that our individualized pathways are utilized and that we differentiate our instruction. And we want to make sure our inconsistencies and interventions are handled. We have to make sure we're consistent throughout the year, the way we provide intervention. And that aligns with our year 3 goal for the empowerment zone. That is the same for math. We recognize that only 14% of our students were on or above grade level. And we really believe that our students should be able to compete, and we want to get more students on grade level. So we definitely want to follow the same strategy, make sure that we're using the differentiated strategies in our classroom and our planning, and make sure that we handle the inconsistencies in our intervention. For school culture, we want to make sure that we develop relationships. One of the things that was the goal for us in the empowerment zone was to build a culture of trust. And in that culture of trust, we didn't do as well. I think 79% is not okay. We only had 79% of our teachers to say that they felt that we developed a culture of trust on average throughout our surveys. And second, only 10% of our student leaders were trained in restorative practice this year. So those two things impact our culture tremendously. So one of the things that we're going to focus on is the root cause, strong grade level collaborations. We did a lot of collaborating amongst our grade levels, but we didn't do it across the school. And we want to be purposeful in our team building. And we want to be purposeful in our restorative practice training and celebrations. We want to name the why behind every decision that we make. Not all staff completed circle training, but we're in the process of completing it this July. So that is very important that we can administer restorative practice throughout our school. For family participation, I know that's something that we can make an excuse about through COVID, but less than 10% of our families participated in the survey. We need to have a better sample to reflect the work and outcome that we want to see at Coquillart. So we want to make sure our teachers are handling that in that classroom, that we have more consistent touch points with our parents. So that is something that we're going to take pride in. I'm going to quickly turn it over to Ms. Thomas, who is going to go over our next slide, which are our academic and instructional goals. Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. My name is Carol Drager Thomas, and it is my pleasure and honor to be here this evening with the board and all my other colleagues in the empowerment zone. I would like to talk about our SMART goal number 1, that our goal is by May 2022, we will move from 19% of our students testing on grade level to at least 45% of our students at or above grade level on the Reading iReady diagnostic. To give you perspective about, you may think that these numbers are not too hot, and of course they're not, but I just want to remind everybody here, and in case nobody really realized, but my why of how did I land at Coquillart is because I looked at some of the data with Coquillart, and it's been an F school for quite some time, one of the lowest elementary schools in the state of Indiana, honestly. And I was appalled that in 2017 and 18, 0% of our students in 3rd and 4th grade passed both English and math. 0%. And in just 2019, our school was the lowest in the zone in proficiency in math. 2% of our students were proficient in math. So when you look at this and look at our data, we will move from 19% of our students testing on grade level, and even with the math, 14%. Just remember that it wasn't just a few, it was just a few years ago, we were at 2%. That were even proficient. So I just wanted to give a longitudinal lens to some of our data, and then also just to give another data point about the fact that at Coquillart, we reduced the percentage of, we reduced by 9% the number of students who are 2 grade levels behind. That's pretty remarkable given the fact that the average in the zone was 7%, and the fact that we have been the lowest school, but we have to give a shout out to Harrison because they decreased that number by 11%. So we're on the road to recovery, and it's not quick and fast enough for any of us, but we're on the road. So how are we going to, what are our action steps here? We are going to be using data called daily, weekly, and monthly to create action steps to increase student achievement and to really push differentiation. Dr. Reed pointed that out in the last screen, and I want to just quickly talk about that we could have done a stronger job with differentiating this year, and so we're going to hit that hard next year. And part of the reason for that is basically 3/4 of our teaching staff were not only new to Coquillart this year, but they're actually new teachers. So we had they had all they could do to stay afloat with just everything. And so I just have to give a shout out to our remarkable teachers who, while new to the zone, new to Coquillart, and actually new to teaching, they really helped us with some of our progression in increasing our our academic goals this year. We plan to implement multi-tiered systems of support for identifying and addressing academic support. That also includes targeting our English language learners in our building, and give a huge shout out to Mr. Solis, who is named Deputy Superintendent this evening. I really congratulate that move because he, and along with Dr. Camacho, they are huge advocates for our growing ELL population in the zone and at Coquillard. And we fully embrace their leadership as we really reach out to our ELL population and move those English scores. And we plan to also have daily and weekly collaboration for progress monitoring to identify learning gaps. Dr. Reed?
Thank you. I'm going to continue by, I'm going to go back to this last slide, just quickly to recognize math. We want to make sure that our goal is to teach kids not to just learn formulas, but to make sure they're conceptualizing what we're doing with our math and our inquiry and questioning. That is one of our major goals, to put an onus in math for May 2022. When we see that I-ready test again, we want to make sure we increase that number from 14% to 40%. We're going to make sure our multi-tier system is supporting math throughout our school. So that is our clear focus throughout next school year. Daily and weekly collaboration will take place. We're going to progress monitor, and we're going to identify the gaps consistently like we were prepared to do this year, but we want to make sure that we have no excuses and that takes place throughout next school year. All right, so I'm going to go over our school culture goal. Really quickly, staff, by the end of the school year, we want to make sure, by December, we want to make sure 90% of our staff strongly agrees with the statement that we're building a culture of trust. We can't go anywhere without having a culture of trust. The leadership will make sure that staff is part of the decision-making, and that will be done through our coaching, our surveys, and our strategy meetings. We would be more intentional in getting staff voice. We will make sure our professional development and input is maximized by listening to our teachers. The next goal is definitely to make sure 100% of our students will receive restorative practice training led by our teachers. Teachers will receive this training throughout the summer, and they'll continue to get this circle training throughout the next school year. But we want to make sure that our student leaders are maximizing in capabilities. We didn't talk a lot at Coquillard about behavior management. We talked a lot about student leadership, and we wanted to make sure every student had an onus and a voice in our school. For family partnership, this is an area that is key for us to focus on. We want to move from less than 10% to greater than 25% of our parents participating in the school-wide events. When we did have events, they were phenomenal, and parents were there, they were engaged. But we need to hold more curriculum events. We need to do more things for our parents as it relates to careers and the community. We want to make sure that we strengthen our protocol of communication. And we want to make sure that we track how we're doing this. It's okay to say you're doing something, but how you track it, because what doesn't get tracked is actually not done. So that is a focus for us at Coquillard. Our next goal is parent involvement. We want to make sure that we have 20% of our parents participate in school-wide look-fors. And that is going to be done by May. That is our goal. And what that does is leverage our parents in decision-making. We want to make sure our parents can walk through our buildings and look in our classes and see the engagement and learning goals that we talk about at Coquillard. We will host more opportunities next school year. That is our hope, with COVID being out of the way, so our parents can get involved and see what we see on a daily basis. To close out, I know I went really, really fast, but when Dr. Camacho says 7 minutes, Coquillard has to do it in 7 minutes. This is our quote. I think it's really important. It talks to the traction that we want to build in our school. And this quote is from Webb Du Bois. He says, "Now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest and the playtime. So right now, the soil is right. We have things in place, and we're going to champion that at Coquillard. And I'm thankful for you guys listening to us on this call. Any questions at this time?"
Thank you very much. And so board members, any questions as we follow up? Thank you for the presentation and the hard work.
I have a question.
Yep.
And maybe actually it could probably be directed to anybody. It was kind of a common theme. Maybe I'll start with you, Cheryl. So the terms we saw in several of the plans from each of the schools that talk about restorative justice and restorative practices. And I think people come, sometimes from we're not sure what that means perspective, and they kind of jump to their own conclusions. I think what's important is for us to help folks understand what that means to us in the zone, especially because it's such an integral part of each of those plans. Can you talk for just a second, or maybe one of the principals, even whoever you think's best, about kind of what that means in the zone, so that if there is public watching or even confusion amongst all of us, that we're starting from that all from that same point of understanding.
Yes, I really appreciate that question, because I think you're right. There are a lot of terms out there, and it's important to be clear about what we mean. So when we talk about restorative justice, restorative practices, it's really reframing student misbehavior as sometimes something that there's been harm that needs to be repaired. It does not mean that we don't have consequences in the empowerment zone, because we do. But it does mean that we know that consequences aren't enough. We have to help students. So for example, if two students got in a fight in the playground, right? There's a consequence for that. But layer on top of the consequence is something called a restorative conversation, where when they come back, from their out of school suspension or whatever consequence has been assigned, they sit down together with someone to facilitate the harm that was caused, so that the relationship can be repaired and they can move forward. In what I saw a lot of in 2019 was, we're giving consequences, no restorative conversation, no trying to repair the relationship or the harm. And so you'd see the same children engaging in conflict over and over and over again. And I would say that concept also applies to staff. As we're working to build a really, trust filled, team-oriented staff culture, we know that sometimes adults have conflict too. And we believe that it's important for us to help them navigate that and help each other understand the harm that's been caused in those moments. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it sure is. And so can I ask just a quick follow-up to that? So when we, kind of began our first conversation about the establishment of the zone, and we sat with the State Board of Education, and we kind of looked at our metrics and how we, stacked up. We didn't stack up very well, for example, on discipline, and so now, as we have been implementing this kind of restorative practices into our kind of daily culture, I realize we're not there yet, and it's an integral part of our plan going forward. But how's that working so far, I guess, in the schools?
Yes, I would say it's work that is emerging beautifully, right? Like you said, we have not arrived. There's still, I think, a lot of skill building to do with our staff. I would say this year we laid a really great foundation of people understanding the why behind it and what it actually is, because I think that it's been implemented poorly in a lot of places in the country. And so people always equate it with, oh, well, you don't have consequences and kids can just do whatever they want. And so we've helped sort of correct some of those misconceptions. But as we move into next year, we really want to deepen the skills of being able to facilitate those conversations, and also being able to, de-escalate. I think the Crisis Prevention Institute training that we got, the CPI training that we talked about, is like a beautiful thing for a foundation upon which to lay more of the skill building around this. So I think, it was really tough to launch things in a pandemic year, but Isaias's team and our principals and our teachers worked really hard to do that. We have a long way to go in terms of skill building, but definitely feel like we laid a good foundation for it this year.
Other questions, comments before we continue on the agenda?
Just a quick comment to all the principals, especially, and your teams. I was so impressed with all your authentic comments, especially the root causes, and I saw the data. Some of the things that I personally am concerned about is as we look at some of those data, and as you're looking into increasing the test scores, some of the implementation of teaching to the test is always in the back of my mind. And I'm fearful of that. if any of the principals or the leaders or Dr. Camacho, if you can kind of address that, what that would look like.
Yes. So we absolutely are about teaching children and teaching them, the Indiana state standards, right? That's what's been set out by the state of Indiana. And that is what our curriculum is aligned to. And that is what we do in our classrooms. I actually sent a note to our staff back before standardized testing started, saying very explicitly a part of my story, which is I taught in Atlanta Public Schools as a first grade teacher, where first grade teachers had to take standardized tests, or first grade students had to take standardized tests. And there was a lot of test prep in Atlanta Public Schools at that time. I'm sure you all know sort of what happened in Atlanta as a result of that cheating scandal that, really rocked the education world. I don't believe in test prep. I believe that we give children, an orientation to this is a bubble, this is how, make sure you fill it in, right? But that's it. If we teach children well, they will do well on the test. And that is how we approach the work in the empowerment zone.
All right. Seeing no other questions, then we'll go ahead and roll on the agenda. And thank you again to all our presenters and everybody. And I know we're going a tad long here, but I appreciate everyone sticking with us here so we can continue to go through our agenda. A couple items left. So board announcements and updates is next up. And so A under that is administrative updates. And Cheryl, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I was gonna share a series of updates around some amazing hires that we've made, but I'm actually going to push that to our next board meeting just in the interest of time. And I will be sending an update to the board as we finalize. But I just want to say we've got some amazing people joining our team, some amazing people being promoted on our team, and I'll be sending out that information later, and we can talk about it at our first board meeting of next school year.
Okay. So thank you very much. And then so with that, rolling down to board member updates and open for board members who wanted to make a comment.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple comments.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I think generally the comments related to board governance, and we're not a new board of directors anymore. We've been around for a little while, and we have a responsibility to the public to make sure we're transparent in all the work that we do. And I realize as board transitions happen, things fall by the wayside, but we've got to get our arms around simple things like board minutes for transparency, to the public. So I'll hope you, Mr. Chairman, and the staff of the Empowerment Zone can work toward resolving issues like that. For example, at the school corporation, there's a secretary on the school board, but the staff provides, kind of administrative support on things like that. But we haven't approved minutes for quite some time. That's a legal responsibility that we have as a board. We hosted 2 executive sessions in the last month, a third one this evening. It's a legal responsibility for us to provide board minutes for that. And so I'm maybe more imploring our board members and the staff that we got to get our act together. We can't sort of say we're a new board anymore and we're trying to figure this out. We've got to get, got to get these things figured out. And we can't go another meeting without sort of approving simple things like minutes. I know that those, seem like a mundane task at the beginning of every public meeting, but they perform an important function. And so I'm just, suggesting that all of us have to take some responsibility and get those things corrected.
Yeah, and on that note, it's kind of interesting that I had saw our agenda tonight that I realized that I'd overseen that we didn't have minute approval on our site. The one comment on that, and I agree, we'll, Cheryl and I can have a conversation about just kind of some staff roles and how we get supported as a board in that direction. But from a transparency standpoint, I do want to make sure folks know that the recordings of our meetings are available for folks to watch. So it's a complete record of the conversations here. And we will submit at our next board meeting the reference notes from our executive sessions as required. So we'll make sure that those things are happening. But I appreciate, Jeff, the poke there that I continue to make sure that we are doing those items and having those things in place. So we will continue to work on that. And I welcome other comments from board members on suggestions to help ensure that we're doing that from now until our next meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one separate comment. I could have said it earlier, but I just want to thank the principals on the call. I can appreciate the incredible challenge of the last year. I have kids of my own in different levels of schools, as many of us do on this call. And again, I just want to applaud the effort and through a very difficult year. So thank you very much.
Any other board comments? I've got just a couple end announcements, and then I've got to read public comment. We've got a handful that got sent to me or sent in.
Just one other comment, Sam, and my assumption too, related to meetings, that given where we stand in the pandemic and the fact that most public meetings are going back to person, I suppose that maybe the expectation going forward again is that we'll meet in person rather than virtually.
Yeah, and that's probably a good conversation here. So we discussed having our future meetings done in person. And so that'll happen starting with the next board meeting. We were actually going to try to plan that for today, but I think with last minute and people were already traveling and whatnot, it was going to be easiest to continue with the virtual method here, but we will move to face-to-face meetings in the future.
And when will we meet next, Mr. Chairman?
Ooh. Let me pull my calendar up here. We do have that set.
Yeah, we shared the dates, I think, at the last board meeting. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was an actual agenda item.
Yeah, I have it on my calendar. I'm thinking we also have a responsibility to the public, and the public has a keen interest in what's going on. So I simply asked the question more for I think we should have a duty and responsibility at each meeting to let the public know when we're going to meet next, so if they are interested, they can.
Yeah, if there's, Cheryl, if you.
I'm pulling it up. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't have my calendar pulled up here, so. Got my split screens here, so now I can't see things.
Rob is saying August 10th, if you saw the chat. So August 10th is our next board meeting.
Yeah, so August 10th, same time, 6 p.m. And then after, we're doing every other month in that same kind of cadence. So what we'll do is, and then on that note, from a transparency standpoint, that might be something, Cheryl, if we could get that on the Empowerment Zone website, maybe like on our board page, just listing future meetings for the whole year there might be an easy way to go about that as well. Other board questions or comments?
I'd just like to chime in and thank everyone for what was a challenging year, but really a great presentations from all the principals. Dr. Camacho, it's obvious that your principals see you. I think Dr. Boyd referenced you as the North Star. I think that's important, that leadership is, not only just solidified in one person, but many, as a true team and community at work. And it was just lovely to hear everyone. I also want to commend principals for choosing their quotes. I love those. Those are great. So keep up the good work, looking to different leaders and literature to inform your visions. And I really appreciate the updates. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll do just kind of, I guess, yeah, comment note from me, and then I will read public comment, and then we will adjourn. But one, also thank you. So I don't want to, just reiterate what others have said, but thank you to everybody who presented tonight, and thank you. I loved especially, I think my specific one was just continuing to talk about the culture, trying to build a positive culture of success in our schools, but also the culture and diversity of the students and families that we serve. And I think it's fitting. It's June, and it's Pride Month, and it's also Juneteenth celebrations are going to happen this weekend. If you didn't know about Juneteenth, make sure you Google that. It's important that we're embracing all of our students and celebrating the richness of our community. And so I'm really I think that it's fantastic. So I'm excited to see, what's going to happen next, and as we continue on these improvement plans. So thank you to everybody. I will read public comment here. I've got mine pulled up. I will do like I did last month, and I think Jeff was helping me with timing on that last month. I didn't think to tee that up today again, but we've got a few comments. I will read just first names, no addresses, and I will read the public comment. So Amanda. From the first meeting of the Parent Advisory Board, Dr. Camacho has listened to and acted on the requests and suggestions of the parents involved. Through her thoughtful leadership, the parents of the Empowerment Zone feel encouraged and heard. The council would be remiss in voting out Dr. Camacho, as the zone would lose one of its most valuable resource and asset. Also, Amanda, I thought it was a duplicate. Also, Amanda, greetings. I just want to submit a comment in support of Dr. Camacho's powerful and important work this past year to implement trauma responsive practices throughout the South Bend Empowerment Zone. I'm a clinical psychologist and psychology professor at nearby Valparaiso University, and my expertise is in trauma. Dr. Camacho brought me in to provide trauma-informed care workshops for the SBE teachers and staff in August of 2020 in an effort to ensure that teachers and staff were equipped with tools and resources to support SBE students and families amidst the ongoing pandemic, racial unrest, and contentious political climate of this past school year. I was immediately impressed with her leadership and commitment to ensuring that our most valuable or our most vulnerable youth and families were supported, as well as how intentional she is about taking care of her staff in individual and systematic ways so that they can keep supporting students. In my experience, it's rare to find educational leaders who not only get it the way she does, but also take decisive and effective action to respond to the immediate need and seismic shifts so many have experienced this past year. I encourage you to keep supporting this impactful leader so that she can continue to guide SBE students and staff toward their full and powerful potential. Lauren, I'm an artist in South Bend. I was commissioned by the Empowerment Zone and Dr. Camacho to bring new life to Navarre Middle School through representational, relatable, joyful murals. The idea of having the first Black woman to go to space, or a tree of diverse hands with stems that highlight achievement as everyday visuals in a space of education inspires kids to dream big. To see similar faces in a space they spend so much time and use to grow perpetuates a level of safety and acceptance, which I believe is so important in formative years. And I feel as if Dr. Camacho feels the same. What Dr. Camacho is doing to help the youth bloom to its fullest potential by being aware of what needs to change and implementing the change in real time. I feel as if my experience working with the Empowerment Zone has benefited the artistic community tremendously to even see that something like having murals in schools is even possible. I went to Coquillard, and even having a brief meeting to schedule the next session of murals, I see the flowers being watered. Dr. Camacho is setting a new standard for more impactful, progressive way to handle education, and that only spirals out of positive impacts towards the overall community. Angeles, Dr. Camacho's leadership has been instrumental in implementing the zone's vision. She has demonstrated her investment in our community. Katie, I'm a teacher in the South Bend Empowerment Zone. Dr. Camacho has been a dynamic, inspirational leader. I appreciate her passion to make positive change. The students in the Empowerment Zone are blessed to have a leader like Dr. Camacho. Heather.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can I ask a question first? Some wonderful comments, and I'm grateful for the public sharing this. I'm curious, though. We went through this, sort of last month. None of this is germane to anything we're considering tonight on the agenda. Maybe you could just give us a feel. Do you have one of these? Do you have 100 of these? I think that maybe the board needs to consider. A policy. I think school board, council, everybody has a policy related to public comments, and maybe we need to consider that, some sort of policy there too. So I suppose my simple question is, do you have one of these or 100 of these?
I've got 3 more. And they're not uberly long. I agree. I think we talked about this last time, that in the absence of policy of our own, we were going to follow the South Bend School Corp policy that they would read up to 3 minutes of each. And so we've got 3 more. They're short, and so I can get through them pretty quickly. And then I agree, we could put it on our agenda for future meetings for us to discuss our own policy around it.
I think we should. I think that I don't not pretend to understand the South Bend School Board policy, but generally I think it pertains to things that are germane to the discussion on the board. So I don't know. I suggest we put it on a future meeting and we adapt a policy as a board in terms of what we're doing with public comments.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I would just follow, since this is what we'd expressed we would do previously. I guess I will read these next 3 unless other head shaking from board members or not, but I will finish as kind of planned.
Sam, I'd like to hear the comments. I think art in schools is important, and I think it speaks to an overall issue that we have spoken about tonight, which namely has to do with school culture and equity. So if you could, I would like to hear the rest of the comments.
Okay.
I would like, though, to make sure my comments weren't meant to say we're not for art in schools or whatever. This is an issue we talked about, previously, is why I brought that up. I didn't disagree with anybody's comments, but I think we need, as a board, need to understand if we're gonna, every board I've ever served on has a policy related to this, and I simply asking the question about a policy.
Yeah, no, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was going to say, I mean, where does the line stop? That's the concern. I think that I just want to, I share Jeff's opinion. I mean, we could be here all night sometimes, the way some of these things are starting to evolve. So I think it's a fair discussion. I have no concern with 3 more comments. That's not going to take long, regardless of what they're about, but I think it's good to have a policy going forward.
Okay, then let me do, I'll finish these, and then Jeff, if maybe we can talk about starting to craft policy for our next board meeting to put in place. So this was, make sure I haven't missed one. Heather, I'm a current and lifelong South Bend resident. I have had my own South Bend public school education and upbringing from pre-K through high school, to now as well living my own adult life career as a therapist, interacting with families and children, adolescents in South Bend schools and neighborhoods. While I have not had the opportunity or pleasure of meeting Dr. Camacho myself in person, I have had the chance to hear the many testimonials from various individuals and families whom I treat and provide treatment to on a daily basis. Her reputation is one that is led by diversity, strong leadership skills, care, and love for those that she serves, and also a true passion for the work that she provides. I have had the pleasure of interacting with clients and families with which Dr. Camacho has made an impact in many different ways, small and large. It would be a great asset to the city of South Bend to choose to support the extension of her contract in serving South Bend school systems. It has been her character, values, and moral which has truly stood out to the families she is serving, and making sure they feel heard, supported, and best served as they have so far under the leadership she has provided. Corey, in my opinion, I think Dr. Camacho has a great passion for our youth, and every decision she makes will empower her students. And Anita, Dr. Camacho has been such an amazing asset to our community. I am a part of the support staff for our students. She has always supported me in my professional life, or in my professional life and personal. She is the true epitome of a leader. I look forward to continuing this work with her. That completes public comment. And then with that, reminder that August 10th will be our next board meeting. I will get a working committee here together, Jeff, to talk about public comment and process for that. And then also following up on governance items as well. So thank you for everybody for sticking with us here. I know this was a long meeting. It was a long school year. And I think that we can see the positive momentum happening here in our schools. And I appreciate the dedication of our board members and staff for the hard work here. And so with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn here at 8:41 p.m.
So moved. Second.
All right, assuming no opposition to the adjournment, we are adjourned.